So bank switching can be a really simple process, and you do it once and you get some money, or you change your main account and you're happy. But there's nothing to stop you switching more than once. You can do it again and again and again and again and again, and keep breaking in all those different incentives, all those different perks and offers. So this is how you switch bank like a pro. Now, I've done this a number of times. I've done it 21 times over the last 11 years or so. If there is an opportunity for me to switch bank and get some free cash, I do it, okay? And these are some of the tricks that I've used over the years. First of all, don't just switch your main account every single time. As you know, when you switch your old account, it's going to close down. And that means you lose access to a number of different perks and extras that might be in there. Yeah, it's fine if you don't like the account and you don't use it. But if there are good freebies that come with that account, or good incentives or good linked products, you want to keep hold of it. So instead, create what I call a dummy account. And a dummy account can be with your existing bank potentially. It could be with a brand new bank. I've talked before about which ones are the best ones to go for, broadly speaking. But I think Chase is a pretty good bet. As long as you keep one account open with Chase, you can open up additional ones and you switch away from them, it's fine. You just need to make sure you've got one current account always open with them at all times. Because if you close it completely, you might never be able to get back in. But you open up this dummy account and that's there, ready to go. No problem at all. You switch it. When an offer comes along, that is the one that you get rid of. The next thing you need to be thinking about is what else might be required for a switch. Now, a lot of the different switching deals, as we've spoken about before, might require you to have a certain number of direct debits or even standing orders active on the previous account. Now, active is one of those words which is a bit of a grey area when it comes to banking. Many of the cases, whether in theory or in practice, it might not even matter. It just needs to be on the old account. But I always err on the side of caution. I always like to ensure that the direct debit has been paid out of the old account before it switches across, just to be 100% sure I'm going to get the money. So on this dummy account, I like to have a couple of direct debits there working in the background, rolling around as it is, as normal. So if a switch offer comes along, I need to act fast, I can do it. I don't have to wait to set him up and for that money to have come out of the old account. There are ways around this. Again, I've spoken before about some cheap ones and some quick ones that could be very, very easily set up that effectively don't even mean you lose out on any money, right? You're transferring money to yourself, a bit of a cheeky workaround that lets you do this. But of course, you might just have some general bills that you're paying, which you can just move over there and have them coming through, your TV license maybe, or some smaller things that come on a regular basis, which there's no real advantage to have them elsewhere, such as if you have the main bills coming out of a cashback account from Santander, for example, have them sitting there just in the background, rolling away. Just obviously need to make sure there's enough money going in to pay those direct debits as they come through. The other thing I do in terms of prepping your account, getting it ready for those switch deals, is just to make sure you have an active debit card there, just in case that switching deal does require you to have that long card number to enter that in order to process the switch. Now, the next step to go through is to choose your switch. Now, obviously, whether this is an issue or not depends on a few factors. Are there choices? Sometimes there's only one or two bank switching deal live at any time. Sometimes there's 5 or 6. So that obviously depends on whether this is going to be an issue or not. But also, how many times have you previously switched? If you've never switched or only switched once or twice, then it might be that you've got a lot of options going on. But if you're a regular repeat switcher like myself, then you might find actually there's only one that you can go for, in which case is great. But if you have got a choice, there are things that a pro bank switcher will do rather than just going for the highest paid one, because that might be the most attractive one, right? This one pays the most money, so I'm going to go for it. But you also need to think about things in a kind of a broader kind of spectrum as well. So first of all, how often do they run a switching deal? If this is a kind of a really rare one and they've not done it before, it could be the start of something that becomes more regular, or it could be a one-off and it doesn't return. So you've got to weigh up like, okay, maybe I'll take advantage of that. And obviously when we share details over at becleveryourcash.com and on the YouTube channel and on the podcast of all the different switching deals, we'll give you an indication if that's likely to be the case. There's also something to consider is around how long the deal is going to be around for. Sometimes there's a published end date and you know when it's going to be. I say no. Sometimes these things can be closed early and they finish early. So there's not always 100% guarantee it will end on that date. But most of the time, you've got that time to get it. Others, there's no end date and they can be pulled at any time. So again, if you're thinking about getting multiple deals and multiple times, it might be that you can get hold of one and then get hold of another. So you want to go for that one that might get pulled first in order to guarantee you get that one over the other one that comes maybe later on. But again, the switch deal process, how long it takes, can also be a factor. Although it's 7 working days for the switch to go through, in order to get the cash, sometimes it's really quick. You get that money within a week or 30 days of switch completing. Others might require you to stay with a bank for 66 months or something like that. Keep going, keep doing things in order to get all that cash. So again, you're going to have to weigh those things up together to work out which one you want to go for. And you also need to think about whether having a switching deal from one bank is going to rule you out from getting a switching deal from a different bank. Now, there are only a couple of ones here where this really applies. Halifax and Lloyds and First Direct and HSBC, they are very strict on their rules that say if you had or get a switching deal from one of them, you won't get it from the other one. NatWest, RBS and Ulster Bank say the same as well. So I always approach it, we're only going to get one of those switching deals rather than get all of them. But previous deals, that hasn't necessarily been policed. And like we had hundreds of you guys share in our Facebook community that you've completed what was called the Triple Crown, which is getting money from each of them. Though again, I would suggest you to err on the side of caution there. If you are going to go for it, know that you might get rejected for those multiple offers. But think about that. Now, the HSBC and First Direct ones, if they run, they can be quite different. And also the perks from the current accounts can be quite different. You're not just looking alone at the switching deal, you're looking at what's underneath it as well. I generally would personally err with the First Direct one over HSBC, even if the money's slightly less, because they often have a higher paying regular saver, which could earn you more money over time. When it comes to Halifax and Lloyds, Lloyds has a decent Club Lloyds current account with some decent freebies, would take very little effort. But Halifax has its own reward account, which potentially has a more lucrative monthly freebies, ongoing freebies, but you have to do a little bit more. The amount of money you get, that can vary as well. But again, you've got to think about which one you're going to go for. And don't forget, though, with these ones, you can have both accounts and both freebies. You just can't get switching deals on both. NatWest and RBS accounts, they're pretty much the same. So whichever one you go for there, I don't think it makes any difference at all. Now, all looks good. You've got your dummy account set up. You've got the dummy direct debits on that dummy account ready to switch, and you found the deals and you've identified the one you want to go for. But before you apply for that new account and start that switching process, just take a slight step back and just do double think about whether you should be switching right now. Because not only does opening up a new current account potentially impact your credit score because you'll have a credit check on that new account, when you close the old account, the old one that you're switching from, that disappearing could also have an impact on your credit report. And that's because if it's a particularly old one, if this is an account that you've had for years, if not decades, that will be a really positive indicator on your credit report in terms of loyalty. That longevity is an average longevity across all your accounts, but that one, if it's been around for a long time, can really make a big difference. So really think clearly about whether that is one that you want to be moving away from. And again, I would suggest not. Even if you don't want to use it as your main account, I would suggest keeping that old account live and using a dummy account instead, just to avoid that potential risk of doing that. So assuming that's not a problem and you go through for the switch and it all goes through and it all completes, you then need to start thinking about the next switch and what you're going to do with that. Because the new account that's come through, it could be the money comes really easily, really fast, and that's your new dummy account and you can switch it again. Again, keep repeating the same account, nice and simple, right? But it might be that that new switching deal requires you to do a number of things in order to trigger all the cash or stay with the account for a certain amount of time. If that is the case, then you're going to want to keep doing those things. Likewise, if the account itself has one of those decent freebies, like the free Disney Plus with Club Lloyds, or the free cinema tickets or £5 with the Halifax Rewards, or the 7% regular saver with First Direct, or the moment a 10% regular saver with Virgin Money. If those things are going to be around and you want every month, or you need to be them for a year to get the full benefits, again, you can't switch away if another deal comes along. So you need to start thinking about, again, do you need another dummy account, and setting one of those up. Again, bearing in mind what I said about how many applications you might make in a short space of time, and potentially there's questions around whether if you've switched away from a bank, whether they'll let you open up a new account, whether you do this straight away. You might want to space things out a little bit in terms of opening up that additional dummy account, but doing that, and if you need to, repeating the process and getting more direct debits on there ready to go, which means the next time a switch deal comes along, you can take advantage of that. And there's one last thing to share that's really important as well if you want to be a pro bank switcher and do loads and loads and loads of these, like I have with my 21 switches and my £2,800 that I've made over this time, is to make a note of when that switch completed, when it happened. Because a number of the deals, when they do come around, it's not as good as it used to be, right? But a number of the deals, when they come around, they will have a threshold, a cut-off date that says you can't take advantage of this offer if you've previously switched to us and got a switching incentive as of a certain date. Now, this used to be more generous. They used to move on year after year. That hasn't happened so much in the last 18 months or so, I would say. But there's still the potential for it. So if you know exactly when you completed a switch, you know exactly when you closed the old account, it works both ways, then when offers come along in a year's time or 2 years' time, and I tell them all about them on becleveryourcash.com/banks here on the YouTube channel and in the podcast, then you are able to then know if you are eligible for it and take advantage and potentially get that money again and repeat. So that's how you switch bank like a pro. For more ways to take advantage of bank switching and make even more for your money, check out these videos here.